Hi, this is Priors, and today I want to bring you 10 tips to improve in Hearthstone or to get your game to the next level. Tip 1. Play slow. Time is also a resource. Taking the entire time made available if necessary. Don't rush making decisions. Take as much time as you need to figure out the best play. If there is still time left, feel free to check again. For example, counting lethal in a difficult spot. Don't rush, as this often leads to mistakes. My favorite mistake is playing a pirate turn 1 or 2 and snap clicking finish turn, and missing 1 damage because I forgot about the appearance of patches. Don't only think about the current turn, also plan ahead for the following turn or turns. For example, if you play a card with overload, now can you still play a proper next turn? Or I don't want to coin my 2-drop now because I can't use my mana efficient next turn if I do so. That's why I play a 1-drop now, play the 2-drop the turn afterwards, and can coin into a 4-drop in turn 3, and also play my other 4-drop afterwards. A really important concept also is to watch out for potential 2-turn lethal, and to recognize when it's time to go face and don't play for board anymore. Another example for planning ahead is to make trades awkward for your opponent. This can, for example, be done by playing the minion that's most inefficient for your rival to remove given his board. Tip 3. Identify your opponent's deck. You need to know which deck archetypes are currently played in meta. If you do so, you first need to find out which deck your opponent is playing. After that, you can play accordingly. For example, an aggro pirate warrior requires other adjustments than a slow control warrior. Against the first, your main goal is to survive his first aggression, and then you will win most of the time. Against the second, you will often have to play a longer game and have to play a round brawl. Tip 4. Avoid tilt. If you face a tough losing streak due to unfortunate RNG, you should keep cool and don't rage, because if you get tilted, your game will suffer, and as a result, you will perform even worse. If you can't keep composure, take a break after getting angry. Tip 5. Try to predict your opponent's next move or moves. By knowing the meta well, you can predict possible actions and deck choices from your opponent given his class. You should always think about your opponent's cards and his possible counters to your actions. If you do so, you might find better plays that are weakening his best answers to your move. For example, in turn 7, your opponent, a mage, gets access to the AoE Flame Strike. Knowing this, you can play minions with more than 4 health, or trade in a way that you keep high health minions in order to keep them on the board and don't get totally ripped by the mighty spell. Tip 6. Draw first. If you know for sure that you will draw cards this turn, do it at first. You always want to draw first, because the cards you are getting might change your best play. If you don't draw first, you might not be able to do the best play anymore, as you might already have spent the required mana for another move. Tip 7. Board control. With most decks, you are looking to have board control. Board control means that you got minions on the board and your opponent don't. With board control, you can extract a lot of value because you decide how the minions are trading into each other, and that will give you a huge advantage, as you can use your minions more efficient than your rival. Tip 8. Extract infos from Mulligan, holding period of cards, and cards being played already. If your opponent is mulliganing his whole hand away, you can expect that his hand has been weak or had no early game in it. If he kept his whole hand, you can expect a great opening from him with all the answers he needs. As more and more cards from your opponent gets played, you will find out the deck archetype he's playing and you can make the proper adjustments. If he kept a card in hand really long, this also gives you infos. For example, your opponent kept a card in his starting hand that he hasn't used yet, let's say 10 turns later, and you think it's a Reno deck, and he was able to keep a healthy life total all the time. In that case, there is a good chance that this card is Reno Jackson. Or if he kept a card that is still in his hand many turns later and he had board control all the time, it might be a removal spell, most likely an AoE spell. If a game takes until fatigue or really long, you can narrow down the cards your opponent has left by recognizing his deck archetype and knowing the cards that were already played. In a really late state of the game, you might know exactly which cards are left if you paid close attention or if you are using software-based help like Deck Tracker, for example. Tip 9. Don't miss lethal damage. This tip is really basic and more for beginners, but it's not as basic as it seems. Often, even good pros miss lethal if the situation is really complex and the lethal is hard to see. So always watch out for potential lethal. Tip 10. Play to your odds. Sometimes a game is almost definitely lost. But there will be some rare instances you can still win the game. In that case, it's important to identify these situations and play accordingly. For example, if you will lose board control for sure next turn, but you still have a small chance of winning if you go face now and get the perfect card next turn, then you need to recognize and play accordingly. Still trying to trade and losing the game for sure would be a big mistake. Now I want to give some final thoughts. Essentially, all said before is either about extracting value by using your cards in the most efficient way or about using the available information best. Even if you use all the techniques shown before, you will not win every game. This is still a game based heavily on RNG, but you will have a good win rate. In order to gain the necessary skills described before, you would have to invest a lot of time, and that's not enough. You also need to practice a lot and keep being focused. Furthermore, you also need to stay updated about the current meta and the new cards. If you can manage all that, you will be a great Hearthstone player with a lot of success in getting high ranked. Having good arena results would also be easy for you. This was it for today. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please subscribe and/or give me a like, and also feel free to comment below.